In today's news, BVI Stimulus Package goes before Cabinet this week as residents seek answers.
U.S. expands naval presence in the Caribbean. These and more when 284 News returns.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Hello everyone, welcome to 284 News. It is Wednesday, the 8th of April 2020. My name is Javon Wilson.
And I am Kyla Kinesha Forbes. Yet another beautiful day in the British Virgin Islands.
Yes, Kyla. So I know we're following one of the posts from Minister Carvin Malone, where we see recently it seems as if essential workers have been abusing their passes, or rather misusing them. According to his post, which you will be seeing up on the screen shortly, the curfew is imposed to save lives. Time for whistleblowers to get busy. Too many individuals are abusing their passes by going to places not specified in the pass. It must stop. The next move would be to cancel all passes and tightly issue new passes only to absolute and verifiable essential workers. Check your status, or you may be checked in. Violators are risking your life. Now that, of course, coming out of social media posts from Honorable Carvin Malone, the overseeing health minister in the British Virgin Islands, but kind of really speaking to an issue that has raised quite a number of questions across the territory ever since the beginning of the lockdown. Now, just living on the main myself, you can hear multiple cars moving back and forth within the period allotted for persons to get out and do what they need to do. And seemingly a lot more persons on the road that are considered to be essential workers.
Yeah, I think over a course of a few days now, we're seeing an increase of vehicle traffic on the roads. And as he said before, this is put in place to save our lives. We are, blessed to be able to even be, putting out and doing what we're supposed to be doing as essential workers, but persons who are actually abusing this power.
And it's daunting. It's daunting, definitely. And according to the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, and based on the last advisory sent out by the government of the Virgin Islands, we see here that persons who are not using their passes for that bona fide reason, of course, essential services, those persons, if caught not using them for the right reasons, can be charged for breaching the curfew, as well as the possibility exists that their passes may be taken away. But Kyla, a bigger risk here as we look at this situation, what we're looking at is a virus, like the Premier has said, an invisible enemy. And so the biggest risk is the fact that we're going out there callously and irresponsibly, and essentially risking not only our lives but the people around us as we continue to fight the invisible enemy that is COVID-19. So again, kind reminder, viewers, for our essential workers, very specifically, to use your passes for the reasons issued. Now, we do understand that things might happen and you might want to consider the possibility of using it otherwise, but again, please be responsible. You will be in breach of the curfew order if you are not abiding by the rules.
Yeah, most definitely, Javon.
Our viewers, topping our headlines today, Premier and Minister of Finance Honorable Andrew A. Foy has announced that the first phase of the economic stimulus package for the Virgin Islands as a result of COVID-19 will be submitted to Cabinet this week. The Premier, in his announcement yesterday, said that the Minister of Finance, he will be addressing the territory on the preliminary economic stimulus plan for the people and businesses in short order. He said, Just like your government took its time but moved with haste in the preventative measures of COVID-19 in the BVI to ensure your safety, so will your government do the same with the economic stimulus package for our prosperity, the Premier said. Now, the government has since allocated just about $12 million, Kyla, to ensure the procurement of the necessary supplies and structure needed for the preparedness to manage COVID-19. And of course, ever since the declaration of COVID-19 becoming a pandemic, Premier as well as the other ministers of government have announced a few ways to aid the economic hardships faced by many locally here in the BVI. Now, let's speak firstly about Honorable Kai Reimer suspending water charges. I think that would have started on March 19th and is valid through April 18th or 19th. We also saw Honorable Natalia Wheatley, the overseeing Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries, allotting about $2 million to strengthen the local food security. And I know that's a common concern as we continue to monitor things, not only here in the BVI, but across the world, where we see even the ports are shutting down. And we also saw about 400 persons, Kyla, benefiting from social assistance under the Minister of Health, Honorable Carvin Malone. And, you know, so we see some steps being made overall by the government to assist in the situation, at least temporarily, until they figure out a long-term plan. And while these steps, yes, have created some amount of security for a few, the reality is that a vast majority in the country is still under immense pressure, Kyla, as we try to figure out what that next step is. Now, as we've seen, that stimulus plan we've been petitioning for, it's finally coming. The Premier said it will go before Cabinet this week. But the big question is certainly, what are some of the key considerations within this plan? Now, we can look across the region and across the world, and we see various stimulus plans being implemented. Kyla, just this morning, we were able to tune in to St. Martin launching their stimulus plan in a three-part format. Firstly, speaking to the priority in their opinion, which is business owners, small business owners, and providing them with up to 80% of their salaries for their respective employees, just to keep businesses afloat and persons employed. We also see their second priority being independence. We're looking at persons like taxi drivers, or even persons like artists and so on, who have no way of making monies outside of what they do personally. And then thirdly, they are going to address the unemployment issue via their regular system that was already in place even before the onset of coronavirus. So people are doing things differently. I know tonight St. Lucia will roll out their stimulus plan as well. But some of the questions to keep in mind here as we move forward with our stimulus plan: will businesses be a priority? We look across the USVI and even in America with the PPP plan, which basically is going to afford small businesses monies from the overall plan, just to ensure that they keep their businesses open and employees ensure that they still have a job. A lot of persons are also asking if the Social Security Board legislation will be reviewed, and I know we spoke about that just yesterday, Kyla, but even then, the Social Security Board is saying you must invest to receive a payout. So that certainly, even if the law is revised to, make provisions for unemployment claims at the board, that definitely would not be an immediate payout, according to what they're saying. A lot of persons are also asking if we are going to establish an unemployment body or agency to handle the unemployment aspect of things, or are we considering, like many other countries, looking at a general payout to all residents? But Kyla, the sad reality is here in the BVI that by April 19th, if we are to reflect, when the curfew is lifted, most persons by that time would have been out of work for about 3 working weeks. So when we examine the breakdown of our workforce, for example, we look at the hospitality industry. About 60% of residents work in hospitality-related industries, and we see about 40% in finance. Now, while finance brings in about 60% of the revenue, our hospitality industry workers are the vast majority, and for me, those are the persons, those are the businesses that will be crippled. And we also have to look at the fact that they might be considered the most vulnerable group. They're not necessarily the highest paid when you think about it, and sadly, when you look at them academically, a lot of these persons do not have degrees to support a prudent future when we think about, the reality of things here in the BVI. Plus, we have to also look at the fact that the tourism dollar, when you think about it, Kyla, it circulates in the economy, in the BVI economy, 10 times faster than the finance dollar. That money is spent here. So, for example, you have a woman who is working at a bar or a restaurant. She pays rent to a local landlord. She also pays money for groceries at the supermarket. So that money trickles down, it circulates. However, when we look at the finance industry, that is not necessary. It doesn't go out or go around as fast. So I think within this plan, government really has to place heavy consideration on bailing out the hospitality industry, not only because it sustains our economy, but also because it really represents a big majority of the workforce. And Kyla, with the economy being locked airtight for, as we've seen, almost 3 weeks, because by the 19th it will be 3 weeks. Persons are now forced against the wall, and in my opinion, they are the ones that need the help the most, Kyla.
I do agree. All great points, Javon. And I remember in a press conference a few weeks ago, where the premier and the leader of the opposition hosted that press conference, and they did speak a little bit about stimulus packages. And I'm really glad to see that this is something that's going to cabinet right now. At that time, the premier was speaking a little bit about the fact that, yes, we're comparing the fact that a lot of other Caribbean countries and countries all over the world have already rolled out stimulus packages in a really hasty time, and it seems as though the BVI is not doing it quick enough. But what he was basically saying, sometimes with the haste, you have to make sure that you can give what you're promising to the people. So I think that's what the premier is really looking at. And I'm really hoping that this is something that could come on stream soon, because you did make a great point that as of April 19th coming up, a lot of persons would have been out of work for an entire 3 weeks. And sometimes for some people, they still have bills to be paid, and even so, coming out of it, groceries have to be bought, and we're definitely praying for those persons going forward.
Definitely, Kyla. I know we have a long-term stimulus plan going, but a lot of persons, like you said, are looking for a more immediate fix. We do trust that the premier and the government is doing the best that they can and taking quite an extensive look, but certainly these are the questions that are circulating, at least some of the main concerns of the general populace.
I do agree. But Javon, I think while the world is busy fighting against the COVID-19 virus, a lot is happening right underneath our noses. Just last week, the United States have announced the expansion of its naval presence in the Caribbean. Javon, did you by chance hear anything about this?
I heard about that, and I know there's been an ongoing conflict between the United States and Venezuela, and they seem to be bumping heads a lot, and it has a lot to do with also the fact that the United States provides so much support and supplementive support to Venezuela, but there is an ongoing war with drugs and crime, and the United States seemingly wants to get a curb on that.
So I think a lot of people are asking, well, why now is the United States, expanding and sending the Navy into the Caribbean Sea? And as you rightfully said about the fight with Venezuela. So out of a press conference last week with the U.S. President Donald Trump and the top military officials, they spoke on the war against drugs and their decision to expand their naval presence. So let's take a look at that video.
For your leadership, and I want to publicly thank Admiral Craig Fowler, the commander of U.S. Southern Command out of Miami, for leading this operation, which is underway effective today, and also Admiral Gilday, the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Schultz, for their contributions to this from their services. There's thousands of sailors, Coast Guardsmen, soldiers, airmen, Marines involved in this operation. We came upon some intelligence some time ago that the drug cartels, as a result of COVID-19, were going to try to take advantage of the situation and try to infiltrate additional drugs into our country. As we know, there's 70,000 Americans die on an average annual basis to drugs. That's unacceptable. We're at war with COVID-19, we're at war with terrorists, and we are at war with the drug cartels as well. This is the United States military. You will not penetrate this country. You will not get past Jump Street. You're not going to come in here and kill additional Americans. And we will marshal whatever assets are required to prevent your entry into this country to kill Americans. So right now the Navy has marshaled additional Gray Hull ships from both PACOM and EUCOM and for the Naval Fleet at Norfolk. And they are set sail already, and they are in the Caribbean right now. In addition to that, there's 10 Coast Guard cutters, and there's Special Operations Forces and Security Force Assistance Brigades, along with Air Force reconnaissance aircraft. The bottom line is you're not going to get through. Now is not the time to try to penetrate the United States with illegal drugs to kill Americans. With the United States military, we will defend our country regardless of the cost. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Secretary.
Now, Javon, in this clip, we see where they speak a little bit about, the war on drugs and Venezuela using this time in the wake of the pandemic to basically traffic drugs into the United States. And to me, really and truly, I think this claim is very interesting. This move comes just a week after the U.S. charged Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and other senior officials in the country with narco-terrorism. The charges accuse them of flooding the U.S. with cocaine and using drugs as a weapon to undermine the health of Americans. The U.S. deployment, once again, just came 2 days after the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo offered to lift sanctions which have continued to cripple the Venezuelans' economy. And these, what they're basically trying to say, they promised to lift these sanctions just if Mr. Maduro and the opposition leader, Mr. Juan Guaidó, agreed to power sharing the deal. Mr. Guaidó is the opposition leader, but reports show that Maduro and the Venezuelan government has repeatedly rejected this deal offering. Javon, the U.S. government basically have many reports of Maduro just abusing power in Venezuela. Anybody that knows about Maduro's style of governing would basically consider him to be authoritarian. Washington has long accused the Venezuelan president of leading a corrupt and brutal regimen, a charge he has repeatedly rejected. Javon, here we see a shift from considering Maduro illegitimate and an authoritarian to being publicly labeled as a narco-terrorism. Some people, Javon, would say this is a bit of a stretch. When you look at this provides the U.S. with a rationale for making the military move. I think it's really interesting.
It is interesting and a big label to deny. I know even within Venezuela, the war on drugs has been, it's been ongoing and definitely even a fatal fight in many instances. And the United States really cramping down on it because, they want to ensure that the narcotics does not continue to enter their shores. But I see a lot more emphasis being placed on the fact that they're very intentional with trying to deny the country of Venezuela funding for various reasons. So this is definitely one we want to continue to watch.
Definitely.
Viewers, still ahead, Mr. Bernie Sanders is no longer contesting the United States elections, and we have a lot more. Just stick with us.
Some claim that the age of a true gentleman is far behind us, but here at 284 Media, we disagree. He may appear in different guises today, but the values and ideals that make him a gent still stand. 284 Media proudly presents its newest talk show, The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, with yours truly, Ron Grant. a show poised to help guide modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen. Don't worry, it's not all about suits and bow ties, but raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men. The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, a 284 Media production.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, Kyla, we're following some breaking news on the international scene. U.S. Senator Mr. Bernie Sanders has opted out of the race for presidency. Now, Kyla, we know for the past couple of weeks, Mr. Sanders has been really trying to assess the way forward for his campaign. He completely shut down his campaign and had ceased all fundraising efforts over the last few weeks. Now, in retrospect, he's had quite a roller coaster journey up against Democratic candidate Mr. Joe Biden. And today, shocking news, the senator has now decided to bow out. Now, according to him, this was a very painful and a very difficult decision. Here's the address.
I wish I could give you better news, but I think you know the truth. And that is that we are now some 300 delegates behind Vice President Biden, and the path toward victory is virtually impossible. So while we are winning the ideological battle, and while we are winning the support of so many young people and working people throughout the country, I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful. And so today, I am announcing the suspension of my campaign. Please know that I do not make this decision lightly. In fact, it has been a very difficult and painful decision. Over the past few weeks, Jane and I, in consultation with top staff and many of our prominent supporters, have made an honest assessment of the prospects for victory. If I believed we had a feasible path to the nomination, I would certainly continue the campaign, but it's just not there. I know that there may be some in our movement who disagree with this decision, who would like us to fight on to the last ballot cast at the Democratic Convention. I understand that position. But as I see the crisis gripping the nation, exacerbated by a president unwilling or unable to provide any kind of credible leadership, and the work that needs to be done to protect people in this most desperate hour, I cannot in good conscience continue to mount a campaign that cannot win and which would interfere with the important work required of all of us in this difficult hour.
So interestingly, Kyla, we've seen how the trajectory of his campaign has really changed. You know, early on, Mr. Bernie Sanders was in the lead with clear-cut wins in 2 major states and another win in a 3rd state. And in that moment, I feel the Democratic body must have realized quickly that if they don't act within a certain time, a victory would have been sure for his contender, the other contender, Mr. Joe Biden. Clearly, according to the rate that he was going, Bernie was supposed to win. Then came the onset of the coronavirus and a very steep decline from the Super Tuesday voting. And ever since then, many persons have been really worried that he'd abandon ship. And today we see a very shocking reality. That is exactly what he did. Now, Democratic presumptive nominee Mr. Joe Biden has since released a detailed statement speaking to the announcement. Mr. Sanders, he said, Mr. Sanders as a person is very incredible. He said, I know Bernie well. He's a good man, a great leader, and one of the most powerful voices for change in our country. And it's hard to sum up his contributions to our politics in one single tweet, so I won't try. He also appealed to Bernie's supporters. He said, I know that I need to earn your votes, and I know that that may take time, but I want you to know that I see you, I hear you, and I understand the urgency of this moment. Biden said, I really hope that you will join us because you're more than welcome. You're needed. Bernie, within his announcement, also congratulated Mr. Joe Biden, who is now in the lead. He was considered to be a very transformative leader who had revolutionized politics in America. So, Kyla, we see very shocking headlines, even within the world of politics. Mr. Bernie Sanders, for a couple of weeks, has really taken a step back as it relates to his campaign, and really caused a lot of his supporters to question his intentions going forward within the race for presidency. He was up against Democratic candidate, Mr. Joe Biden. So clearly now it seems as if Joe Biden might become the next nominee for the Democratic Party. Now, a lot of persons have questioned why. He has attributed a lot of this to the ongoing crisis, and saying that his efforts should be more focused on assisting persons. We've heard that he's been able to raise millions of dollars for persons in need within the crisis in America, and so he claims that this is the time to focus on that, and also acknowledge the fact that according to numbers, he possibly may not have won.
I think his efforts, basically pulling from the race and just to focus on helping persons in this time, I think it definitely speaks to him being a true leader. Now is a difficult time for a lot of persons, and a lot of things have shifted. What we have known just the beginning of the year is completely different now to date. Just definitely wishing him all the best in his political career to come. Most definitely. So Javon and viewers, that's it for today's news roundup. Be sure to like us for our daily news updates at 284media.com, and like us on Facebook at 284media and 284BVI on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And I am Javon Wilson, again reminding you, our viewers, our valued viewers that is, to join us again tomorrow for honest and impartial news right here on 284 Media. Happy Wednesday.
It is a happy
everybody.
Wednesday.
Take care.
It's been said, sticks and stones may break bones, but words don't hurt me. That could not be further from the truth. Everything you say and do creates an impact. Whether you're 13 or 30, 6 or 60, your actions and words carry weight. They either lift someone up or tear them down. 1 in 5 students ages 12 to 18 has been bullied during the school year. Approximately 160 teens have skipped school because of bullying. The most commonly reported types of bullying are verbal harassment, social harassment, physical bullying, and cyberbullying. Remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, and bullying is never okay, whether it's in a classroom or corporation. 284 Media joins the Ministry of Education of the Government of the Virgin Islands in the fight against bullying. When you see it or hear it, speak up against it. Let's end bullying.
How may I assist you? Yes. You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top up power?